Welcome to the Patience and Progress audio experience with your host, Jake Butler. In life, it's important to have patience, but also make progress. This episode is brought to you by Butler Capital, Rich Kid Camp Online, and Money University. Put your hands together for a former school teacher turned full-time real estate investor, Jake Butler.
All right, so we have some people coming into the room today. We see Myrna just came in. Myrna, how you doing? You can click unmute on your microphone. I'll unmute you and let me know how you're doing. Sounds good. Sounds good. So as people are coming in today, this week's episode will be going. I got a lot of emails. Exactly, people wanted to know what is an assignment of contract, and they wanted me to go into detail about it. And that's actually how I started in real estate. So currently now with owning commercial property, just purchased 20 acres in Alabama, which we'll be leasing to a truck style company. I started with as little as $1,000. Actually, you can start with less than that if you want to get into tax deeds and tax certificates. But how I started as a school teacher was with learning how to wholesale foreclosures, properties that were in foreclosure, because properties that are in foreclosure have an actual auction date. So you can very easily start there if you don't know where to start. If you don't have at least 1,000, you can start with as little as 500 and buy a tax certificate from an upcoming county auction. Okay, now those auctions only take place once a year per county, so you have to kind of know when the auction is coming up. But um, anywhere from 1,000 to 10,000. If you have closer to 10,000, then if larger properties don't deter you or don't scare you, then um, you can get a property under contract that's a commercial property that's worth 1 million, 2 million with a $10,000 down payment. One of my commercial deals, I made 88,000 on a warehouse where the down payment was 10,000. I forget what the purchase price was, but I was able to sell that my position in that deal for $80,000 profit inside of 45 days. So you don't have to, have the full amount of the money of the contract price. You just need enough to control the property. And then if you can't do anything with controlling the property after 30 days, then you can cancel and get your deposit back. So you can actually have what they call a free look, kind of like a test drive when you go to a car dealership. So that's one of the easiest ways to get started. The most important thing is to start. If I had to do everything over again, I would start strictly with commercial. I would jump in 100%. Because now, I don't really look at deals unless there's $1 million to be made, which next week we'll cover commercial, but basically the net operating income, if you take $100,000 and divide that by 10%, then that's equal to a value of 1 million. So if you can increase the NOI on a property by $100,000, then you can make $1 million in a transaction. So how do you do that? You have to be able to increase the rents on at least a 50-unit apartment building by 100 to 125 to $200. So the rents have to be below market, and you have to be able to increase those rents, which a lot of people don't move out if their rent increases $100 or 150. So it's what's called a nuisance raise. But you have to find a property below market that has below market rents acquired at the retail price, and then be able to increase those rents, which will increase the NOI, and then that increases the value. So we'll go more into that next week, but that is the quickest way to become financially independent. With houses, you have to, keep buying them, fixing them, reselling them, or keep doing what they call an assignment of contract. You have to keep doing it to keep making money versus once you own a commercial asset, depending on the size, it could be it could pay you, every month a substantial amount. So when I say substantial amount, I mean enough to be financially independent, enough to cover all of your monthly bills and still have enough income to do whatever you want after that. So just one commercial deal can do that for you. So I would encourage anyone that's listening to start there. And it just starts with education. You have to, become, more educated about it. And as you become more educated about it, you become more confident. And that'll get you to financial independence the fastest. But back to residential, which we're talking mostly about today. The residential properties is so funny because just driving, on your regular everyday basis, you start to see properties that where the grass might be a little bit high or it might look vacant. There was one property I never forget when I first started. I drove by this one particular neighborhood. Normally after church on Sundays, I would just drive neighborhoods for maybe about an hour and a half, and write down addresses of properties. They call it driving for dollars, is what they call it now. But there were two or three guys out front playing checkers, and I was like, this property look a little bit weird. And it also had a for sale sign in the window, a for sale sign that you would, purchase at Home Depot, not a professional one, like a regular handwritten one that you would get from a store and you just put in your phone number. So it had a for sale sign, and there were some people out front playing checkers and drinking uh, alcohol or whatever the case may be. So I stopped the car and I went over to him and I asked him, I said, hey, is this house for sale? And come to find out, their mom had passed away, and the house was in foreclosure, and they were just waiting for the bank to take it. And they had a for sale sign in the window because they were trying to sell it. And this was just, driving every day. I just happened to, pass this property. But if I wasn't looking for an opportunity, or if it didn't strike me, then I never would have stopped. I never would have stopped. I think that deal generated a little over $70,000. They gave me the number to the attorney, the family attorney that was handling the case. Gave them a call. Ended up buying the property, fixing the property, rehabbing the property, and then selling it. And that was one of the first deals, probably within the first 10 deals that I did. But that just happened to come by from driving, everyday driving to the store, driving to the supermarket. So just knowing what to look for, you don't even have to, be specific as far as, okay, I'm going to take an hour today and I'm only going to look for, properties in this particular sector. Just in your everyday travel, you come across opportunities just in your everyday travel. So, keep that in mind um, as you go through. I think everybody should learn how to do an assignment, whether residential or commercial, because you can assign residential or commercial. And then after you do that once or twice, you'll say, I need to start owning these properties and not selling my position. So that's actually how I got into commercial real estate. So that is what you want to do. There's a ton of information out there. People kept asking me how I did it, so I wrote a home study course on how to do it. But it's a very, very simple transaction. And even if you don't plan to um get into real estate investing fully, if you could pick up an extra 10, $20,000, during the year, just because you know how to do an assignment, whether residential or commercial, then I mean, who wouldn't want to do that? So I would say learn the skill. There's a free webinar that I did on it at realestatejb.com. If you go there, there's a free webinar. If you scroll down to the bottom, um, there's a free webinar where I go through the transaction. And then also, if you want to go further, there's a home study course that I wrote, moneyuniversityonline.com, because so many people just wanted to know how to do it. Which leads me into, if you're on this webinar and haven't downloaded my book that I did with Kevin Harrington from the co-author with him, one of the original sharks from the television show Shark Tank, um, just go to jakebutler.info and you can download a free copy. So really excited about the way things are going. I'm really excited about starting back with my weekly episodes. I've had a lot of interest, and every week I'm going to be sharing different ways to get started in commercial real estate and different ways to make profits, and just basically how to move the wealth needle in order to create a legacy for your family and for whatever you like to do. And if you don't have a family, for your charity or for whatever you like to do to further progress. So in residential, if you're going to start with residential, first find out what niche you want to kind of drill in on. I would encourage you to drill in on a niche where the homeowner has to make a decision. And the three areas where a homeowner has to make a decision are foreclosure, probate, and also tax deed. Where in Florida, if your property has back taxes that haven't been paid for at least 3 years, then the county can auction off the property if the person that owns the tax certificate applies for what's called a tax deed. So once those properties get behind at least 3 years in taxes, they have auctions every week, every single week. At Miami Dade dot is Miami Dade, Miami Dade dot real foreclose. That's REAL foreclose, FORECLOSE. Miami Dade dot realforeclose.com is a calendar of all the properties coming up for tax deed sale and mortgage foreclosure. Now, every county has this particular sale. I'm just giving that particular address because that's where we are, and that's one that we started with. If you log in there, if you get a free ID and password, if you go down to the bottom left, that same company that hosts that platform hosts the platform for the majority of all the counties in Florida. So just by getting that one same ID and password, you can actually get the tax deed foreclosures and the mortgage foreclosures for all of the properties in the state of Florida. Because almost all the counties are listed there, and they use that same website to for the calendar. So you can very easily see. You can even download the list into Excel, sort it. If you want, if you want to get more aggressive, you could even mail postcards to people that are in that circumstance. Which is how I recently did a deal where I turned 5,000 into 18,000. Didn't even use any of my own money. Used the $5,000 that was needed to acquire the property. I used that from one of our investors. So, and I gave that investor a 12% return on their money. So they were happy. And then, obviously I was happy because I turned the transaction, brought it for 5,000, and then turned around and sold it for 18,000. Actually, I got an appraisal, and the appraisal came back at 30,000. But I went ahead and decided to sell it at 18,000. So the opportunities are there. You just have to do something. Um, while I'm on that topic, any questions at all from anyone? I know I've kind of given a lot of information. If you raise your hand, I'll simply unmute your microphone and you can ask me your question. I have a question in chat. Okay, it says, how and where is the best way to get started? Well, as I mentioned, the best way to get started is with properties that have a particular auction date or highly motivated seller where the person has to sell. Okay. So foreclosures have to be sold. If it's not sold by the auction date, it's going to be auctioned off. The person could file bankruptcy, which sometimes they do, but it's going to come back around again. So that's one way. Probate is another huge way. But if you go with probate, you want to focus on properties where the person that filed to own the property, because when someone passed away, they have what's called a petitioner. And You want to contact petitioners that live out of state, because when you do file probate, or when probate is filed, it has to be in the same county where the property is located. So, if I lived in Maryland and there was a property in Florida, my grandfather or somebody owned it, they passed away, I would have to file for probate in the county where the property is. And if I live out of state, I probably don't really have emotional ties to the property, and I'm probably, you know, going to sell it at some point. And if you were in contact with me about buying it, then most likely you would be the first person that I would call or want to, entertain your offer. So that's happened a bunch of times. Um, you have to build a pipeline. So it's probably takes about maybe 2-3 months to build a pipeline, because the probate process takes about 6 months for the person or for the family that's going through it. But foreclosure, probate, and the other one I mentioned, there was one more. Tax deed. So one of those three areas is where I would start. You've been listening to another exciting episode of Patience in Progress Investing with Jake Butler. If anything that I've mentioned in the episode resonates with you, you may want to check out my online learning platform, moneyuniversityonline.com, where you'll gain significant knowledge on how to do real estate deals with little to no money down, and how to go to the next level using other people's money. That's what everyone wants to do. And if you're looking for a mentor, check out onedealonetime.com. That's the number one, onedealonetime.com, where many of my students have been able to quit their job just over 6 to 8 months of being involved in our mentoring program in residential real estate, commercial real estate, or tax deeds and tax certificates. Now, back to another exciting episode. There's another question that says, how much can be made? So, in looking at the profit margin, even if you Google it, the average profit margin on what they call an assignment of contract is about 10 to 15,000. I would say about 5 to 15,000, depending on the property. So between 5 to 15,000 on residential. If you do commercial, you're looking at about 50 to 80,000 as the average wholesale price. Your wholesale profit. I mean, if you assign a commercial property. And then on tax delinquent property, it's between 10 to 20,000 as well. So those are just small numbers where you don't have to own the property. All you have to do is control it. Once you control it, then you want to look for a buyer to buy it, to buy your position in the contract. So the state of Florida contract has what's called an assignment clause. It's actually found on page 2 of the Florida FAR contract. But just about all states have that clause. If the state that you live in does not have that clause, you can write it in. You can write it into an area where it normally says additional information or additional remarks, or there's normally a space in the contract where you can write in your own clause. And the clause is, buyer may assign or sell buyer's position at any point in time without any further recourse. So that's normally what you write in. But the state, if you look for a state standard contract, it has that. If you have my home study course, there's a general contract in there that you can use in all 50 states. So it's nothing illegal. It's totally viable. It's just that people don't really know it or learn it. And then once I did learn it, it was kind of interesting, because that's when I found out how Trump would normally sell the golf courses that he would get under contract, and then he would sell the golf course to a Chinese entity. He would actually assign the golf course to a Chinese entity. So he would just sell his position in the deal for a particular amount of profit. So you never have to own it. You just control it for the period of time. The time frame that you control it is called the inspection period. And the risk involved is you don't want to have an inspection period that you to find a buyer. So if it's your first time, you're going to need about 30 days, at least 30 days if it's your first go around. So you don't want to get a property under contract and you have 7 days, to look for someone else to buy it, or to look for the money if you don't have 100% cash to do it. Because another way is, if there's enough money to assign it, then there's normally sometimes and a lot of times enough money in there to buy it. So simultaneously, while you're looking for a buyer, you can also look for a hard money loan, which there are a bunch of people that do a hard money loan. They'll loan you about 70% of the purchase price, and then you're going to have the other 30%. But that additional 30% can come from an investor. I knew one lady who had an extensive credit line on some of her credit cards, and she used to get her 30% from there. And once she would finish the rehab and so forth, she would just pay it back once she sold the property. So you have to be responsible if you plan to do it that route. But there are multiple ways that you can exit the deal. But the most important thing is to know what to look for, one, and two, know how to analyze it. The analyzation is quite easy. The math is like eighth grade math. It's just that we don't know the formula. And the formula is basically, you want to know what the property could sell for if it was fixed up. Okay, which Zillow can tell you, but I really don't like Zillow because it's a lot of they bring in a lot of data to give you the information of what a property might be worth. I would use realestateabc.com, or I would use ePraisal, EPPRAISAL, ePraisal.com. You take those values, they'll tell you what the property's worth, if it's fully renovated, and you have to know what it's going to cost to fix it up. Now that's the tricky part. That's not the easy cookie cutter part. The way that you know that is you would have to spend about $125, hire a professional property inspector. They would come. You want to request what's called a 4-point inspection. They come, they do a 4-point inspection. A 4-point inspection is electrical, plumbing, heating, heating in cooling, and also roofing. So they look at those 4 aspects of a property, and they tell you, what, and one, if anything's wrong, and two, most of the time they give an estimate about what it would cost to fix it. Okay. Now that wouldn't include upgrading the kitchen and bath, which you can kind of Home Depot. That's not really normally between 7 to 10,000. You can, put in a pretty good kitchen and pretty good bathroom. But you would have to know what the repair numbers would be. So far we got two things. We have what it would sell for if it was fixed up, which I gave you 2 websites. And then you would need to know what the repairs would be. Okay. So that's step 2. That's simply just a property inspector. Step 3 is, how much money do you want to make? You want to put in making anywhere from 10 to 50,000. Okay. I'm normally just plug in 50 because sometimes there's some cost involved in that. So you have what the property would sell for, step 1. You have step 2. What would it cost to bring the property up to speed to sell for that price that you found on ePraisal and realestateabc.com? And then step 3, how much would you want to make, or your end investor want to make? They're going to want to make at least 50,000. Anything where you're not going to make at least 10,000 on an assignment. You don't want to put your time and effort into it if you're not going to make at least 10,000. Subtract all those numbers, and then you have what your offer would be to the seller. So let's 100,000 as an example. So a property that would resell, everything's fully fixed up, move-in ready, would resell for $100,000. You want to make the repairs, let's say, come to about, let's say 15,000. Well, let's say 20,000 to make it easier around math. So 100,000 that will resell the property, 20,000 to fix it up. So now we're at 80,000. Okay. And then the end investor is going to want to make at least 30 to 50,000. So let's say 30. He wants to make at least 30. So we're at 80,000. We want to subtract the 30,000 for the end investor. So now we're at 70,000. No, we're at 80s. We're at 50,000. I'm sorry. So 100,000 minus the 20,000 minus the 30,000 puts us at 70,000. Okay. So 100 minus 20, that's 80. I'm sorry. Puts us at 50,000. I don't know where my math is today. 100,000 to resell, 20,000 for the repairs. That puts us at 80,000. Then we have 30,000 for our profit that the end buyer is going to want to make. So that end investor who we sell our contract to, he wants to make at least 30,000, 30 to 50. So that puts us at a $50,000 offer to the seller. And then we have to have our assignment fee in there. Okay. So your maximum offer on that transaction would be $40,000. Now, that's just round numbers, easy numbers for math. The average home is actually 415,000. That's the average home price. That's crazy. So they actually said a person has to make about $110,000 a year to afford the average home in Florida. That's crazy. So that's a two-person household that can normally afford that. So the numbers that I just gave you are unrealistic as far as market. I just want you to have the math and the formula correct, because if you don't have that correct, then you really don't have much to go on. So that's the formula that's in making the offer. And if that offer is taken, automatically it's worth the time and effort to put into it. So any questions on that component? It's a great way to start. Next week I'll go over the same thing, but commercial's a little bit different. So my dad was in real estate. He had a mortgage company, so I was kind of familiar with it going in. Me was when I was a school teacher, after I paid all my bills, I really didn't have much money. So I started going to different investment groups and different clubs, and all these testimonials as with no money. That's crazy. But actually, no money is not really, it's really a marketing term. But if someone gave you the money, or if you got it off of a credit card, or if you used your IRA, did the transaction without having to come out of pocket. So the term no money is not really no money. It's no money as far as coming out of pocket. There are different credit lines and runners you can use to really put no money into a transaction. I was talking to a developer last week. He had made 2 million on a apartment deal and had no money into the transaction. And he was telling me he coupled in 9 different tax credits in order to do so, along with grants from the government. Just this morning, one of my virtual assistants sent me a potential opportunity in Polk County where they have a $2 million grant to buy an apartment building. It's actually a grant. You can buy it or use it for construction or acquisition. You can use it for any of those 3 things, but the property has to have at least 50 units. So opportunities are out there. Now, let's say I didn't know how to analyze a commercial property, then I would have no way of, even knowing that that was an opportunity. So just the education alone can really, take your level. I have a question. The question says, what is the major difference between commercial and residential? Well, residential by FHA guidelines is 1 to 4 units. Most people don't know. Time home buyer, you can buy up to a fourplex, which and he was looking at my taxes. He was like, "Where is all this income coming from?" So I was telling him that a property with only 3.5% down and buy a fourplex. Uh, Show him how commercial real estate works and my different holdings. He was kind of interested in. So you can definitely start with very little to no money. Even if you start with tax certificates and tax deeds, $500 you can turn into 1,000. The money's really secured for the most part because the property is going to be worth much more than the taxes. So you really cannot you really cannot lose. And once you educate yourself on that component, I mean, it really makes sense not to at least try. It really doesn't make sense not to at least try. So to answer the question, up to 4 units is considered residential. Anything above 4 units, 5 and above, is considered commercial. Within you have 5 sectors. You have apartments, office buildings, shopping centers, retail warehouses, and industrial property. So those are the 5 different sectors. Any other questions before we wrap up today? Because most importantly, I want you all to take action. I want to give you enough information so you can take action. You can contact me anytime. I'll help you as far as, kind of what to do. There's a lot of information in my book, jakebutler.info, if you want a free copy. If you're interested in our online program, you can go to onedealonetime.com. It's the number 1, not the word one, one O-N-E. It's just the number 1, onedealonetime.com. And if you want to schedule a free strategy call, you can go to butlercapital.info. Happy to have a free call with you or one of the members from my team to find out where you are and where you want to go. So if we can help you, you can definitely schedule a free call if you like. And then last but not least, I want to leave you with a story, really interesting story. So there was a guy, he was in the jungle, okay? He had a whole army with him. They were trying to get out of the jungle, trying to figure out what to do. So they're slinging their machetes, knocking down trees, trying to get out the jungle, trying to figure out where to go. So one guy says, hold up, guys, hold up. So he climbs the tree next to him, climbs up to the top, and says, guys, we are chopping in the wrong direction. The town is in the other direction. So by climbing the tree and looking at what the guys were doing, or what his group was doing from a 10,000-foot view, he was able to see that they were going in the wrong direction. So if you take that and you look at your life, where you want to go, what you want to do, okay? So we're constantly setting goals, trying to see where, what direction we want to go. Where do we want to go here? What do we want our life to look like? What do we to look like? And we're trying to move forward in that direction. But if we just pause for a second, look at it from a 10,000-foot view, then we can kind of see, okay, am I going in the right direction? Do I want to go over here? Do I have a mentor? Not just putting all the effort and energy ourselves, but look at your life from an aerial perspective. So that's it for this week. Hope you enjoyed the episode, and I look forward to seeing you next week. If you have any other questions that you didn't happen to come up with on the episode, you can always email me at jake@realestatejb.com. That's my initials, J for Jake, B for Butler, jake@realestatejb.com. And I will see you all next week. Have patience, but make progress. Talk to you soon.
You've been listening to the Patience and Progress audio experience. Tune in next time for another exciting episode where we'll be discussing entrepreneurship, how to create wealth, leaving a legacy, and how to become the best version of yourself. Don't forget to download your free copy of the best-selling book, Mind-Stirring Business Secrets, where Jake was a co-author with Kevin Harrington, one of the original sharks from the hit television show Shark Tank. Visit www.jakebutler.info for your free copy.